Islam, one of the world's major monotheistic religions, traces its roots back to the early 7th century in the Arabian Peninsula. With a rich historical and spiritual heritage, Islam emerged from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, whom Muslims believe to be the final prophet sent by Allah, God. This book aims to explore the foundational aspects of Islam, the life and mission of Muhammad, the initial spread of the religion, and its enduring influence on the world. By delving into these topics, we hope to provide a comprehensive understanding of how Islam began and its profound impact on history and civilization. The Arabian Peninsula before Islam. Before the emergence of Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was a land of stark contrasts and diverse cultural influences. This vast and arid region, stretching from the Red Sea in the west to the Persian Gulf in the east, and from the Mediterranean Sea in the north to the Indian Ocean in the south, was primarily inhabited by various nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes. These tribes, known collectively as the Arabs, were known for their fierce independence, loyalty to their clans, and a deep-seated sense of honor. The Arabian Peninsula's geographical and climatic conditions played a significant role in shaping the lives of its inhabitants. The harsh desert environment, with its scorching heat and scarce water sources, necessitated a lifestyle of mobility and adaptability. Bedouin tribes roamed the deserts, herding camels and goats, and seeking pasture lands and oases for survival. These tribes were organized into clans and extended families, with each clan headed by a chieftain or sheikh, who commanded respect and authority over his people. In addition to the nomadic Bedouins, there were also settled communities in the peninsula. Towns and cities such as Mecca, Medina, then known as Yathrib, and Ta'if were centers of trade and agriculture. These urban centers were strategically located along the major trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the broader world, including the Byzantine Empire to the northwest, the Sasanian Empire to the northeast, and the trading ports of the Indian Ocean to the south. The city of Mecca in particular held significant religious and commercial importance due to its location and the presence of the Kaaba, a revered sanctuary that attracted pilgrims and traders alike. Religion in pre-Islamic Arabia was predominantly polytheistic. The Arabs worshipped a multitude of deities, each associated with various aspects of life and nature. The Kaaba in Mecca was a central shrine that housed numerous idols representing these gods. Among the most prominent deities were Hubal, the chief god of the Kaaba, Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, who were considered daughters of Allah, the supreme deity, and other tribal gods that were venerated by specific clans. Religious practices included offerings, sacrifices, and pilgrimages to sacred sites. Despite the prevalence of polytheism, there were also pockets of monotheistic beliefs. Some Arabs adhered to the Abrahamic traditions, influenced by the presence of Jewish and Christian communities in the region. Jewish tribes such as the Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, and Banu Kainuka lived in Medina and other parts of the peninsula, practicing their faith and engaging in trade and agriculture. Christianity, although less widespread, had a presence in the northern parts of Arabia, particularly among the Ghassanid and Lakhmid tribes, who were allied with the Byzantine Empire. The social structure of pre-Islamic Arabia was deeply rooted in tribal affiliations. Loyalty to one's tribe and family was paramount, and tribal honor dictated the actions and behavior of individuals. Tribal conflicts and blood feuds were common, often sparked by disputes over resources, honor, or revenge. These feuds could last for generations, perpetuating cycles of violence and retribution. Despite this, there was also a strong sense of hospitality and protection within tribes, with the well-being of the group taking precedence over individual interests. Economically, the Arabian Peninsula was a hub of trade and commerce. The incense trade in particular was a major source of wealth, with frankincense and maror being highly prized commodities. Caravans transported goods such as spices, textiles, and precious metals across the desert, connecting Arabia to markets in the Levant, Mesopotamia, and beyond. Mecca, with its strategic location on the trade routes, became a bustling center of commerce, attracting merchants from distant lands. The pre-Islamic Arabs were also known for their rich oral tradition. Poetry was a highly esteemed art form, serving as a means of preserving history, expressing emotions, and conveying moral values. Poets, or sha'irs, held a special status in society, and their compositions were recited at tribal gatherings and festivals. The themes of pre-Islamic poetry often revolved around valor, love, nature, and the harsh realities of desert life. The annual Ukaz market near Mecca was not only a trading fair but also a cultural event where poets competed and showcased their talents. In summary, the Arabian Peninsula before Islam was a land of diverse and complex cultural, religious, and social dynamics. The harsh desert environment shaped the nomadic lifestyle of its inhabitants, while the urban centers of Mecca and other cities thrived as commercial hubs. Polytheism was the dominant religious belief, but monotheistic influences from Judaism and Christianity were also present. Tribal affiliations and honor dictated social interactions, and trade and poetry played significant roles in the cultural fabric of Arabian society. This rich tapestry of pre-Islamic Arabia set the stage for the profound transformations that would soon unfold with the advent of Islam. The early life of Muhammad. Muhammad ibn Abdullah was born in Mecca around 570 CE, a city nestled in the barren hills of the Arabian Peninsula. His birth came during a period of great turmoil and change in the region, and his life story would go on to shape the course of history for millions of people worldwide. His lineage belonged to the Quraysh tribe, a respected and influential group in Mecca, known for their roles as custodians of the Kaaba and their involvement in trade and commerce. Muhammad's early life was marked by hardship and loss. His father Abdullah died before he was born, leaving his mother Amina to care for him. In accordance with Meccan tradition, Muhammad was sent to live with a Bedouin family in the desert for the first few years of his life. This practice was believed to be beneficial for health, linguistic purity, and to instill the values of resilience and independence. During this time, Muhammad was cared for by Halima bint Abi Duaib, his wet nurse, and her family. The bond formed with his foster family left a lasting impression on Muhammad, and he retained a deep affection for them throughout his life. Tragedy struck again when Muhammad was 6 years old. His mother, Amina, fell ill and died while returning from a visit to her relatives in Yathrib, later Medina. Orphaned and vulnerable, Muhammad was taken in by his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, a venerable elder of the Quraysh tribe. Abdul Muttalib provided Muhammad with love and protection, but this period of stability was short-lived. When Muhammad was 8, his grandfather passed away, adding to the young boy's grief and sense of loss. After Abdul Muttalib's death, Muhammad's care was entrusted to his uncle, Abu Talib, a prominent leader of the Hashim clan within the Quraysh tribe. Despite limited resources, Abu Talib raised Muhammad with kindness and ensured his inclusion in the family's activities, including the trading caravans that traveled to distant lands. It was during these formative years that Muhammad began to gain experience in trade, accompanying his uncle on journeys to Syria and other regions. These travels exposed him to diverse cultures, religions, and ideas, broadening his worldview and deepening his understanding of the complexities of human societies. Muhammad grew up with a reputation for honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness, earning him the nickname Al-Amin, meaning the trustworthy. These qualities set him apart in a society where deceit and treachery were not uncommon. His ethical conduct and fair dealings in business garnered respect and admiration from his peers and elders alike. At the age of 25, Muhammad entered the service of a wealthy widow named Khadija bint Khuwaylid. Khadija was an astute businesswoman who managed her late husband's commercial ventures. She recognized Muhammad's abilities and entrusted him with the responsibility of leading her trade caravans. Muhammad's management of Khadija's business not only brought substantial profits, but also reinforced his reputation for honesty and reliability. Impressed by Muhammad's character and competence, Khadija proposed marriage to him. Despite the significant age difference, Khadija was 15 years older than Muhammad. The union was harmonious and loving. They were blessed with 6 children, 2 sons, Qasim and Abdullah, who died in infancy, and 4 daughters, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima. Muhammad's marriage to Khadija provided him with emotional stability and support, allowing him to focus on his spiritual and moral reflections. Mecca, during Muhammad's lifetime, was a thriving commercial hub with a rich religious heritage centered around the Kaaba. The Kaaba housed numerous idols and was a focal point for pilgrimage and religious festivals. The city's economic prosperity, however, was juxtaposed with significant social inequities. The wealth generated by trade was concentrated in the hands of a few elite families, while many Meccans lived in poverty. Additionally, tribal conflicts and blood feuds perpetuated cycles of violence and instability. Amidst this backdrop, Muhammad increasingly withdrew from the commercial and social activities of Mecca to seek solitude and reflection. He would often retreat to the cave of Hira, located in the mountains surrounding Mecca. There, he spent long periods in contemplation, reflecting on the moral and spiritual state of his society. Muhammad was deeply troubled by the rampant idolatry, social injustices, and ethical corruption that pervaded Meccan life. He yearned for a sense of purpose and a connection with a higher moral authority. It was during one of these retreats in the cave of Hira in the year 610 CE that Muhammad experienced a profound and life-altering event. While meditating, he was visited by the angel Gabriel, who delivered the first revelation from Allah. Gabriel commanded Muhammad to read or recite, but Muhammad, who was illiterate, responded that he could not. Gabriel then revealed the first verses of what would later become the Quran, beginning with, "Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not." This initial revelation marked the beginning of Muhammad's prophetic mission. Overwhelmed and terrified by the experience, Muhammad hurried home to Khadija, who comforted and reassured him. Recognizing the significance of the event, Khadija sought counsel from her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, a learned Christian scholar. Waraka confirmed that Muhammad had received a divine message and foretold that he would be a prophet to his people. The revelations continued, and Muhammad gradually began to share the messages he received with those close to him. Khadija was the first to embrace Islam, followed by his cousin Ali, his close friend Abu Bakr, and his adopted son Zayd. These early converts formed the nucleus of the nascent Muslim community, known as the Ummah. As Muhammad's message spread, it emphasized monotheism, social justice, and moral integrity, challenging the entrenched beliefs and practices of Meccan society. The early years of Muhammad's prophetic mission were fraught with challenges and opposition. The Quraysh, who had much to lose from the disruption of their socio-religious order, reacted with hostility and persecution. Muhammad and his followers faced ridicule, economic boycotts, and physical violence. Despite these hardships, the Muslim community continued to grow, attracting individuals from various backgrounds who were moved by the message of Islam. The early life of Muhammad is a testament to resilience, moral fortitude, and a profound sense of destiny. From his humble beginnings as an orphan to his role as a trusted merchant, and ultimately as the recipient of divine revelation, Muhammad's journey laid the foundation for a religious and social revolution that would transform the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. His character and experiences during these formative years shaped his leadership and the principles of the Islamic faith, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to inspire millions. The first revelation. The year was 610 CE, and the city of Mecca, nestled within the rugged mountains of the Arabian Peninsula, was bustling with commerce and religious activities centered around the Kaaba. Amidst the everyday clamor of trade and ritual, one man frequently retreated to the solitude of the mountains surrounding the city, seeking clarity and peace. This man was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, a respected merchant known for his integrity and honesty, who was increasingly troubled by the social injustices, moral decay, and rampant idolatry he observed in Meccan society. Muhammad's spiritual quest led him to the cave of Hira, a small secluded grotto on the slopes of Mount Nur, just a few miles from Mecca. It was here, away from the distractions of daily life, that he would meditate and reflect upon the deeper meanings of existence, the nature of the divine, and the state of humanity. His soul yearned for answers, and it was within the confines of this humble cave that his life, and the course of history, would change forever. One night during the month of Ramadan, Muhammad was deeply immersed in meditation. The night was calm, the stars shimmering in the clear desert sky, casting a gentle light over the rugged landscape. Suddenly, the tranquility of the night was broken by a powerful and awe-inspiring presence. Muhammad found himself enveloped in a divine light, and standing before him was the angel Gabriel, a majestic being of immense radiance and authority. This extraordinary encounter would become known as the first revelation. Gabriel commanded Muhammad with a single word: Iqra, recite or read. Overwhelmed and terrified, Muhammad responded that he could not read, for he was unlettered. Gabriel repeated the command, and again Muhammad expressed his inability to read. On the third command, Gabriel embraced Muhammad, imparting upon him the first verses of what would become the Quran. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. These words, simple yet profound, were the first divine communication to Muhammad. They emphasized the act of reading and knowledge, heralding a new era of enlightenment and spiritual awakening. The revelation affirmed that Allah, the Creator, is the source of all knowledge, and that humanity was to seek understanding through the divine message. Trembling and bewildered, Muhammad fled from the cave, his heart pounding with a mix of fear, awe, and confusion. He hurried home to his wife, Khadijah, seeking comfort and reassurance. Seeing her husband's distress, Khadijah wrapped him in a blanket and listened as he recounted the extraordinary experience. With calm and unwavering support, she reassured Muhammad that his encounter was indeed a divine revelation and not the product of madness or malevolent spirits. To seek further clarity, Khadijah took Muhammad to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, an elderly and learned Christian scholar who had studied the scriptures of the Jews and Christians. Upon hearing Muhammad's account, Waraka immediately recognized the signs of prophethood. He affirmed that the angel who appeared to Muhammad was the same Gabriel who had come to Moses and other prophets. Waraka foretold that Muhammad would be the prophet of his people and would face great trials and opposition as he conveyed the divine message. Reassured and fortified by this validation, Muhammad accepted his role as the messenger of Allah. The weight of the divine mission settled upon him, and he began to share the revelations with those closest to him. Khadija was the first to embrace Islam, recognizing the truth in Muhammad's message and standing by him with unwavering loyalty and support. His young cousin Ali, his close friend Abu Bakr, and his adopted son Zayd were among the earliest converts, forming the nucleus of the nascent Muslim community. As Muhammad continued to receive revelations, the message of Islam gradually took shape. The revelations emphasized monotheism, calling people to worship Allah alone and to abandon the worship of idols. The Quranic verses also addressed social justice, urging the rich to care for the poor, the powerful to protect the weak, and the community to uphold moral integrity. The early messages resonated deeply with those who were marginalized and oppressed in Meccan society, offering them hope and a sense of purpose. Despite the profound beauty and moral clarity of the revelations, Muhammad's message faced fierce resistance from the Quraysh, the powerful tribe that dominated Meccan society. The Quraysh had much to lose if the new monotheistic faith disrupted the established order and threatened their economic and religious hegemony. They viewed the Kaaba, with its multitude of idols, as a central pillar of their economic prosperity, drawing pilgrims and traders from across the Arabian Peninsula. The Quraysh leaders initially responded to Muhammad's preaching with ridicule and scorn, attempting to discredit him and his message. They accused him of being a poet, a madman, or someone possessed by jinn, spirits. When these tactics failed to stem the growing influence of Islam, the opposition escalated to harassment and persecution. The early Muslims, many of whom were from the lower strata of society, bore the brunt of this hostility. They were subjected to insults, social ostracism, and physical violence. Despite these challenges, the small but determined Muslim community persevered. They found solace and strength in the teachings of the Quran, which continued to be revealed in segments over time. The verses provided guidance on personal conduct, community relations, and spiritual devotion. They also offered reassurance and encouragement in the face of adversity, reminding the believers of the trials faced by earlier prophets and their eventual triumph by Allah's will. One of the most poignant and powerful experiences during the early phase of Muhammad's prophethood was the night journey and ascension, Isra and Mi'raj. According to Islamic tradition, Muhammad was miraculously transported from the Kaaba in Mecca to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. From there, he ascended through the heavens, encountering prophets of the past, and ultimately standing in the presence of Allah. During this journey, he received further revelations, including the command for Muslims to perform the 5 daily prayers, Salat. This spiritual experience reinforced Muhammad's faith and solidified the central tenets of Islamic worship. As the message of Islam continued to spread, the Muslim community in Mecca grew in numbers, but so did the intensity of persecution. The Quraysh imposed a severe economic and social boycott on the Hashim clan, seeking to isolate Muhammad and his followers. For 3 years, the Muslims endured extreme hardship, facing starvation and deprivation. Despite these dire circumstances, their faith remained unshaken, and their sense of solidarity only grew stronger. The boycott eventually ended, but the challenges for Muhammad and the Muslims were far from over. In the years that followed, they faced personal tragedies, including the deaths of Muhammad's beloved wife Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib, both of whom had been his greatest supporters and protectors. These losses deeply affected Muhammad, but his resolve to fulfill his divine mission remained steadfast. Amidst these trials, a significant turning point came when Muhammad was approached by a group of individuals from Yathrib, later known as Medina. They had heard of his teachings and were impressed by his character and the principles of Islam. They invited him to mediate between their warring factions and to establish a new community based on the values of justice, equality, and monotheism. This invitation marked the beginning of a new chapter in the history of Islam, leading to the eventual migration, Hijra, to Medina, and the establishment of the first Islamic state. The first revelation and the subsequent early years of Muhammad's prophethood laid the foundation for a transformative religious and social movement. The divine messages he received in the cave of Hira, combined with his unwavering faith and moral leadership, began to reshape the hearts and minds of those who heard them. Despite the immense challenges and opposition, the message of Islam continued to spread, guided by the belief in one God and the pursuit of justice and righteousness. Muhammad's experience in the cave of Hira and the revelations that followed were not just personal spiritual awakenings. They were the beginning of a profound transformation that would ripple through the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. The principles of monotheism, social justice, and moral integrity that were central to the revelations would come to define the Islamic faith and inspire countless generations. The first revelation was the spark that ignited the light of Islam, illuminating a path of faith and guidance that continues to shine brightly in the lives of millions of Muslims around the world. The early Muslim community in Mecca. As the message of Islam began to take root in Mecca, the nascent Muslim community faced a challenging and often hostile environment. The early followers of Muhammad were drawn from various social strata, including the marginalized, the poor, and even some influential figures. This chapter explores the formation of the early Muslim community, the social dynamics of Mecca, the nature of the opposition they faced, and the significant events that defined this period. The initial converts to Islam were predominantly from the lower and middle classes of Meccan society. Among the first to embrace the new faith were individuals like Bilal ibn Rabah, a former Ethiopian slave known for his unwavering faith and melodious voice, which would later become central to the call to prayer. Adhan. Another early convert was Sumayya bint Khayyat, who, along with her husband Yasir and their son Ammar, endured severe persecution for their beliefs. Sumayya would ultimately become the first martyr of Islam, killed by the Quraysh for her steadfast faith. The Quraysh tribe, which dominated Meccan society, viewed Muhammad's message as a direct threat to their socio-economic and religious order. The Quraysh were the custodians of the Kaaba, which housed numerous idols and served as a pilgrimage site for various tribes, generating significant revenue. The monotheistic message of Islam, with its emphasis on worshiping Allah alone and rejecting idolatry, threatened to undermine the religious and economic foundations of Mecca. As the number of Muslims grew, so did the opposition from the Quraysh. The early Muslim community faced various forms of persecution, ranging from social ostracism and economic boycotts to physical violence and torture. The powerful leaders of the Quraysh, such as Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, and Umayyah ibn Khalaf, were particularly vehement in their opposition. They sought to discredit Muhammad and his followers, spreading false rumors and mocking their beliefs. One of the earliest and most significant confrontations between the Muslims and the Quraysh occurred in the form of an economic and social boycott. The Quraysh imposed a strict embargo on the Hashim clan to which Muhammad belonged and the early Muslims. This boycott aimed to isolate them economically and socially, cutting off trade and marriage ties. For 3 years, the Muslims endured extreme hardship, facing hunger and deprivation. Despite the dire circumstances, the community remained united and resilient, supported by the teachings of the Quran and their faith in Allah. During this period of intense persecution, the Quran continued to be revealed to Muhammad, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance to the beleaguered community. The revelations emphasize themes of patience, perseverance, and trust in Allah. Verses such as, "Or do you think that you will enter paradise while such trial has not yet come to you, as came to those who passed on before you? They were touched by poverty and hardship, and were shaken until even their messenger, and those who believed with him said, 'When is the help of Allah?' Unquestionably, the help of Allah is near." Quran 2:2-14. These verses reinforce the importance of steadfastness in the face of adversity and the promise of divine support. The early Muslims found solace and strength in their communal prayers and gatherings. They initially conducted their worship in secret, often meeting in the house of a companion named Al-Arqam. This house, located on the outskirts of Mecca, became a center for learning and spiritual growth, where Muhammad taught the Quran and the principles of Islam. These gatherings fostered a strong sense of brotherhood and solidarity among the believers, reinforcing their commitment to the faith. The persecution reached a peak when some of the prominent converts faced brutal treatment. Bilal, for instance, was subjected to severe torture by his master Umayyah ibn Khalaf, who attempted to force him to renounce Islam. Despite the excruciating pain, Bilal remained resolute, repeatedly uttering Ahad, Ahad, one, one, signifying the oneness of Allah. His unwavering faith inspired others and highlighted the deep conviction of the early Muslims. Amidst the hardships, there were also moments of hope and support. Khadija, Muhammad's devoted wife, continued to provide unwavering support and encouragement. Her wealth and status were instrumental in protecting and supporting the Muslim community during these difficult times. Additionally, Abu Talib, Muhammad's uncle and the head of the Hashim clan, offered protection to Muhammad, leveraging his influence to shield him from the worst of the Quraysh's hostility, despite not embracing Islam himself. The resilience and steadfastness of the early Muslims began to draw attention beyond Mecca. News of their persecution and the strength of their faith spread to the neighboring regions. A significant development during this period was the migration of a group of Muslims to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, in 615 CE. Muhammad advised his followers to seek refuge under the just Christian king, Negus, who offered them protection and allowed them to practice their faith freely. This migration, known as the First Hijrah, provided a temporary respite from the persecution and demonstrated the universal appeal and inclusivity of Islam. As the situation in Mecca became increasingly untenable, Muhammad and the Muslim community sought broader alliances and opportunities for support. During the annual pilgrimage season, tribes from across the Arabian Peninsula visited Mecca. Muhammad seized this opportunity to convey the message of Islam to the visiting tribes, seeking allies and potential converts. While many rejected the message, a few showed interest and a willingness to learn more. One of the pivotal moments in this outreach effort was the encounter with 6 men from the Khazraj tribe of Yathrib, later known as Medina. Impressed by Muhammad's teachings and his character, they embraced Islam and pledged to spread the message among their people. This initial group from Yathrib returned the following year with 12 more converts, forming the nucleus of what would become the Ansar, helpers of Medina. The growing interest and support from Yathrib marked a turning point for the Muslim community. In 622 CE, a larger delegation from Yathrib, including members of the Aus and Khazraj tribes, met Muhammad at a place called Aqaba, where they pledged their allegiance to him in what became known as the Second Pledge of Aqaba. They invited Muhammad and his followers to migrate to Yathrib, promising to offer protection and support. This invitation was a significant development, offering a new hope for the beleaguered Muslim community. The Quraysh, aware of the implications of such a migration, intensified their efforts to thwart it. They plotted to assassinate Muhammad, but their plans were foiled. With divine guidance and meticulous planning, Muhammad and his closest companion, Abu Bakr, managed to leave Mecca under the cover of night. Their journey to Yathrib, known as the Hijra, marked the beginning of a new chapter in the history of Islam. The Hijra was not merely a physical migration, but a profound spiritual and social transformation. It signified the transition from persecution to the establishment of a supportive and cohesive Muslim community in Medina. The Hijra also marked the beginning of the Islamic calendar, underscoring its significance in the history of Islam. Upon arriving in Medina, Muhammad was welcomed with open arms by the Ansar, who had pledged their loyalty and support. The bond between the Muhajirun, immigrants from Mecca, and the Ansar was strengthened through a series of social and economic measures that fostered unity and mutual support. Muhammad's leadership and the principles of Islam provided the foundation for a new society based on justice, equality, and brotherhood. In Medina, the Muslim community continued to grow and flourish. The revelations received by Muhammad during this period addressed various aspects of communal life, governance, and spirituality. The Quran provided guidance on issues such as social justice, family relations, and ethical conduct, laying the groundwork for an Islamic society. The early Muslim community in Mecca faced immense challenges and hardships, but their unwavering faith and resilience laid the foundation for the growth and spread of Islam. The experiences of persecution, the strength of their communal bonds, and the divine guidance they received shaped their identity and prepared them for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead in Medina. This period of struggle and perseverance was crucial in forging a strong and cohesive community that would play a pivotal role in the establishment and expansion of Islam in the years to come. The Hijra, migration to Medina. The Hijra, or migration to Medina in 622 CE, was a pivotal event in the history of Islam, marking the transition from a period of persecution in Mecca to the establishment of a supportive and cohesive Muslim community in Medina. This chapter delves into the circumstances leading up to the Hijra, the challenges faced during the migration, and the significant developments that occurred in Medina, which laid the foundation for the first Islamic state. The growing hostility of the Quraysh in Mecca had made life increasingly difficult for Muhammad and his followers. Despite the initial protection provided by Abu Talib and the support of Khadija, the Muslim community faced relentless persecution. The deaths of Abu Talib and Khadija in 619 CE, a year known as the Year of Sorrow, left Muhammad vulnerable and without his key protectors. The Quraysh intensified their efforts to suppress the new faith, making it clear that Mecca was no longer a safe place for the Muslims. During the annual pilgrimage season, tribes from across the Arabian Peninsula visited Mecca, presenting an opportunity for Muhammad to seek alliances and spread the message of Islam. It was during one such pilgrimage that he met a group of men from Yathrib, a city located about 320 kilometers north of Mecca. These men, belonging to the Khazraj tribe, were impressed by Muhammad's teachings and saw in him a potential mediator for the conflicts that plagued their city. Yathrib, later known as Medina, was home to two main Arab tribes, the Aus and the Khazraj, who had been engaged in a prolonged and destructive feud. The men from Yathrib returned the following year with more converts, and they pledged their allegiance to Muhammad in what became known as the First Pledge of Aqaba. They promised to believe in one God, follow Muhammad's teachings, and support him and his followers. This initial pledge was a crucial step toward securing a safe haven for the Muslims. In 622 CE, a larger delegation from Yathrib, including members of both the Aus and Khazraj tribes, met Muhammad at Aqaba again, this time with a more substantial and binding agreement. The second pledge of Aqaba included a promise to protect Muhammad and the Muslims as they would their own kin. This pledge marked a significant turning point, as it provided the Muslims with the assurance of safety and support in Yathrib. The decision to migrate was not taken lightly. The Quraysh were aware of the growing support for Muhammad in Yathrib and saw the potential threat it posed to their dominance. They intensified their efforts to prevent the migration, including a plot to assassinate Muhammad. The plan involved representatives from each clan of the Quraysh, who would simultaneously strike Muhammad, making it impossible for any one clan to bear the full responsibility for his death. However, divine intervention and careful planning allowed Muhammad to evade their plot. On the night of the planned assassination, Muhammad instructed his cousin Ali to sleep in his bed, thereby deceiving the assassins into thinking he was still in the house. Meanwhile, Muhammad and his closest companion Abu Bakr slipped away under the cover of darkness and took refuge in the cave of Thawr, south of Mecca. The Quraysh pursued them, but a series of miraculous events, including a spider weaving a web at the entrance of the cave and a pair of pigeons nesting there, convinced the pursuers that the cave was unoccupied. After 3 days in the cave, Muhammad and Abu Bakr continued their journey to Yathrib. The migration route was fraught with danger, and they traveled mainly by night to avoid detection. Their journey was guided by a skilled desert navigator, Abdullah ibn Uraykit, who ensured their safe passage through the hostile terrain. The news of their safe arrival in Quba, a suburb of Yathrib, brought immense relief and joy to the Muslim community, both those who had already migrated and those who awaited the Prophet's arrival. Upon reaching Quba, Muhammad spent several days there, during which he laid the foundation of the first mosque, known as the Quba Mosque. This act symbolized the establishment of a new center of worship and community life for the Muslims. Afterward, Muhammad proceeded to Yathrib, where he was warmly welcomed by its inhabitants. The city, which would soon be known as Medina, short for Medinat an-Nabi, meaning City of the Prophet, embraced the new faith and the leadership of Muhammad. The Hijra was not merely a physical relocation, but a profound transformation of the Muslim community. The migration to Medina marked the beginning of the Islamic calendar, highlighting its significance in Islamic history. It also signaled the transition from a persecuted minority to a burgeoning community with a shared purpose and vision. In Medina, Muhammad faced the challenge of uniting the diverse and often fractious inhabitants. The city was home to not only the newly arrived Muslims, known as the Muhajirun, immigrants, but also the indigenous Arab tribes of the Aus and Khazraj, collectively referred to as the Ansar, helpers, and several Jewish tribes. Muhammad's leadership and the principles of Islam provided the foundation for forging a cohesive and harmonious society. One of Muhammad's first actions in Medina was to establish the Constitution of Medina, a groundbreaking document that outlined the rights and responsibilities of all citizens, regardless of their religious affiliations. The Constitution emphasized mutual protection, justice, and cooperation among the diverse groups. It recognized the Jewish tribes as an integral part of the community, granting them religious freedom and equal rights. This inclusive approach fostered a sense of unity and collective responsibility, laying the groundwork for a just and peaceful society. The establishment of the mosque in Medina, known as the Prophet's Mosque, Masjid al-Nabawi, became the focal point of the Muslim community. It served not only as a place of worship, but also as a center for education, governance, and social activities. The mosque was a symbol of the unity and solidarity of the Muslim community, where people gathered for prayers, discussions, and communal decision-making. The early days in Medina were marked by efforts to integrate the Muhajirun and the Ansar, fostering strong bonds of brotherhood and mutual support. Muhammad paired each Muhajir with an Ansar in a pact of brotherhood, creating a support system that ensured the welfare and well-being of the migrants. This initiative helped alleviate the economic and social challenges faced by the Muhajirun and strengthened the sense of unity and shared purpose within the community. The Hijra also marked the beginning of a series of significant developments in the religious, social, and political life of the Muslims. The revelations received by Muhammad in Medina addressed various aspects of communal life, including the establishment of the 5 daily prayers, the observance of fasting during the month of Ramadan, and the principles of zakat, almsgiving, to support the needy. These practices not only deepened the spiritual commitment of the Muslims, but also reinforced the values of compassion, generosity, and social justice. In addition to the internal consolidation of the Muslim community, the Hijra also set the stage for the external challenges and conflicts that would arise with the Quraysh and other adversaries. The Quraysh, alarmed by the growing strength and influence of the Muslims in Medina, sought to undermine their progress and reassert their dominance. This led to a series of confrontations, including the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, and the Battle of the Trench, which would test the resilience and resolve of the Muslim community. The Battle of Badr, fought in 624 CE, was a significant victory for the Muslims, despite being vastly outnumbered by the Quraysh forces. The victory at Badr boosted the morale of the Muslims and demonstrated the effectiveness of their unity and faith. However, the subsequent Battle of Uhud in 625 CE brought challenges and losses, reminding the Muslims of the importance of discipline and adherence to divine guidance. The Battle of the Trench in 627 CE, a defensive strategy involving the digging of a trench around Medina, showcased the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the Muslim community in the face of overwhelming odds. Throughout these challenges, Muhammad's leadership and the principles of Islam continued to guide the Muslim community. The revelations received during this period provided guidance on warfare, justice, and ethical conduct, emphasizing the importance of compassion, mercy, and restraint even in times of conflict. The experiences of these battles and the lessons learned reinforced the unity and resilience of the Muslim community. The Hijra to Medina marked a transformative period in the history of Islam. It signified the transition from persecution to the establishment of a supportive and cohesive community, laying the foundation for the first Islamic state. The principles of justice, equality, and compassion that underpin the Constitution of Medina and the practices of the Muslim community set a precedent for the development of Islamic governance and society. The early days in Medina were a testament to the resilience, faith, and unity of the Muslim community, which would continue to grow and flourish, shaping the course of history for generations to come. The battles and the conquest of Mecca. The migration to Medina marked a new phase in the development of the Muslim community, but it also set the stage for a series of confrontations with the Quraysh of Mecca and other adversaries. These conflicts, while challenging, were crucial in establishing the strength and resilience of the nascent Islamic State. This chapter explores the key battles that defined this period, the strategies employed by both sides, and the ultimate conquest of Mecca, which solidified the dominance of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula. Following the Hijrah, the relationship between the Muslims and the Quraysh deteriorated rapidly. The Quraysh, alarmed by the growing influence of Muhammad and his followers, sought to undermine their progress and reassert their dominance. The first major confrontation occurred in 624 CE at the Battle of Badr, a turning point in the early Islamic history. The Battle of Badr was precipitated by a series of raids on Quraysh caravans by the Muslims, aiming to disrupt the economic stability of Mecca. The Quraysh, seeking to protect their trade routes and assert their power, assembled a well-equipped force of about 1,000 men to confront the Muslims. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the Muslim force of around 313 men, including key figures like Abu Bakr, Umar, Ali, and Hamza, prepared for battle under Muhammad's leadership. The two forces met at the Wells of Badr, a strategic location southwest of Medina. The night before the battle, rain fell, providing the Muslims with a stable ground, while the Quraysh camp was mired in mud. This unexpected advantage boosted the morale of the Muslims. On the day of the battle, Muhammad inspired his followers with a stirring speech, emphasizing the divine support and the righteousness of their cause. The battle commenced with traditional single combat between champions from each side. The Muslims quickly gained the upper hand, and the general engagement that followed saw the disciplined Muslim forces overwhelm the Quraysh. Key leaders of the Quraysh, including Abu Jahl, were killed, and the rest of their army was routed. The victory at Badr was a significant boost to the morale of the Muslims and a demonstration of their growing strength and unity. It also reinforced the belief that divine assistance was with them, as the Quranic revelations had promised. The Quraysh, humiliated by their defeat at Badr, sought revenge. In 625 CE, they mounted a significant counteroffensive, leading to the Battle of Uhud. This time, the Quraysh assembled a larger force of about 3,000 men, including cavalry and archers, determined to crush the Muslim community once and for all. The Muslim force, numbering around 700, positioned themselves strategically at the foot of Mount Uhud, just north of Medina. Muhammad's plan involved stationing a contingent of archers on a hill to protect the rear of the Muslim army and prevent the Quraysh cavalry from executing a flanking maneuver. The battle initially went well for the Muslims, who managed to push back the Quraysh. However, a critical mistake occurred when the archers, believing the battle was won, abandoned their posts to collect the spoils of war. This breach in discipline allowed the Quraysh cavalry, led by Khalid ibn al-Walid, to attack the Muslims from behind, turning the tide of the battle. The Muslims, caught between two fronts, suffered significant losses, and many were forced to retreat up the slopes of Mount Uhud. Muhammad himself was injured, and rumors of his death spread, causing further confusion and demoralization. Despite the setback, the Muslims managed to regroup and avoid a complete rout. The battle ended inconclusively, with both sides claiming victory. However, the psychological impact of the near defeat at Uhud was profound, serving as a harsh lesson in the importance of discipline and unity. Following the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims faced continuous threats from the Quraysh and their allies. In 627 CE, the Quraysh, in alliance with several other tribes, launched a massive assault on Medina, leading to the Battle of the Trench, also known as the Battle of the Confederates. Facing an enemy force of around 10,000 men, the Muslims, under Muhammad's guidance, adopted a defensive strategy. Following the advice of Salman the Persian, they dug a deep trench around the vulnerable parts of the city, creating an effective barrier against the Quraysh cavalry. The siege of Medina lasted for several weeks, with the Quraysh unable to breach the trench. Attempts to cross the barrier were met with fierce resistance from the Muslims. Meanwhile, internal tensions and a lack of supplies began to weaken the resolve of the Confederate forces. A severe storm further demoralized the besiegers, eventually forcing them to abandon the siege and retreat. The successful defense of Medina was a significant victory for the Muslims, demonstrating their ability to withstand and repel a superior force through strategic planning and unwavering determination. The failure of the Quraysh to defeat the Muslims in open battle marked a turning point in the conflict. The balance of power began to shift in favor of the Muslims, and their influence continued to grow. In the aftermath of the Battle of the Trench, Muhammad sought to consolidate his position by addressing internal and external threats, strengthening alliances, and expanding the reach of Islam. In 628 CE, Muhammad proposed a pilgrimage to Mecca, signaling his desire for peace and religious freedom. This bold move led to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, a 10-year truce between the Muslims and the Quraysh. Although the terms of the treaty appeared to favor the Quraysh, it was a significant diplomatic victory for Muhammad. The treaty recognized the Muslim community as a legitimate entity and allowed for the peaceful spread of Islam. It also provided a period of relative stability, during which the Muslims could focus on internal development and outreach. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah marked a period of rapid expansion for Islam. The peace allowed Muhammad to send emissaries and letters to various rulers and tribes, inviting them to embrace Islam. Many accepted the invitation, recognizing the growing power and influence of the Muslim state. The truce also facilitated the migration of converts to Medina, further strengthening the community. However, the peace was short-lived. In 630 CE, the Quraysh violated the terms of the treaty by attacking an ally of the Muslims. This breach provided Muhammad with the justification to march on Mecca. He assembled a force of around 10,000 men and advanced towards the city. The Quraysh, realizing their untenable position, opted for a peaceful surrender. Muhammad entered Mecca without bloodshed, demonstrating magnanimity and restraint. Upon entering the city, Muhammad proceeded to the Kaaba, where he ordered the destruction of the idols, restoring the sanctuary to its original monotheistic purpose. He declared a general amnesty for the inhabitants of Mecca, including those who had been his staunchest opponents. This act of clemency won the hearts of many Meccans, leading to their conversion to Islam. The conquest of Mecca was a monumental event in Islamic history. It marked the culmination of Muhammad's mission and the establishment of Islam as the dominant faith in the Arabian Peninsula. The unification of Mecca and Medina under the banner of Islam laid the foundation for the rapid expansion of the Islamic Empire in the years to come. Following the conquest, Muhammad continued to strengthen and expand the Muslim state. He sent expeditions to the surrounding regions, securing alliances and bringing new tribes into the fold of Islam. The principles of justice, equality, and compassion that underpinned Islamic governance attracted people from diverse backgrounds, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. The battles and the conquest of Mecca were defining moments in the early history of Islam. They tested the resilience, faith, and strategic acumen of the Muslim community. The victories at Badr, the lessons of Uhud, the ingenuity at the trench, and the peaceful conquest of Mecca demonstrated the strength and viability of the Islamic State. These events not only solidified Muhammad's leadership, but also established Islam as a major religious and political force in the region. The conquest of Mecca and the subsequent consolidation of power allowed the Muslim community to focus on internal development and the spread of Islam. The principles of justice, equality, and compassion continued to guide the governance and social structure of the Muslim state. The inclusive and transformative nature of Islam attracted converts from various tribes and regions, facilitating the rapid expansion of the Islamic Empire. The battles and the conquest of Mecca were not merely military victories. They were moments of profound transformation that shaped the identity and trajectory of the Muslim community. The resilience, faith, and unity demonstrated by the early Muslims laid the foundation for the enduring legacy of Islam, a legacy that continues to inspire and guide millions of believers around the world. The legacy of Muhammad and the spread of Islam. The death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE marked the end of an era, but also the beginning of a vast and enduring legacy. The religion he founded continued to grow and spread, influencing countless lives and shaping the course of history. This chapter explores Muhammad's legacy, the rapid expansion of Islam, the establishment of the Islamic Caliphate, and the profound cultural, scientific, and intellectual contributions of the Islamic civilization. Muhammad's impact on the Arabian Peninsula was immediate and transformative. His teachings unified the previously fragmented tribes under the banner of Islam, creating a cohesive community based on shared beliefs and values. The principles of monotheism, justice, and social equality that he championed resonated deeply with the people, fostering a sense of solidarity and purpose. Muhammad's leadership and the revelations he received provided a moral and legal framework that guided the Muslim community in all aspects of life. After Muhammad's death, the Muslim community faced the challenge of maintaining unity and continuing the mission of spreading Islam. The leadership of the community passed to Abu Bakr, one of Muhammad's closest companions and the first caliph, successor. Under Abu Bakr's leadership, the Ridda Wars were fought to bring the Arabian tribes back into the fold of Islam, ensuring the stability and continuity of the nascent Muslim state. Abu Bakr's tenure as caliph was brief, lasting only 2 years, but it set the stage for the remarkable expansion that would follow. His successor, Umar ibn al-Khattab, known for his strong and just leadership, oversaw a period of unprecedented territorial expansion. During Umar's 10-year caliphate, Muslim armies conquered vast regions, including the Byzantine provinces of Syria and Egypt, and the Sasanian Empire in Persia. These conquests were not only military victories, but also facilitated the spread of Islam and its cultural and intellectual influences. The Caliphate of Uthman ibn Affan, which followed Umar's, continued this expansion and also saw the compilation of the Quran into a single, authoritative text. Uthman commissioned the production of multiple copies of the Quran to ensure its consistency and preservation, sending them to various parts of the Islamic Empire. This effort was crucial in maintaining the unity and purity of the Islamic teachings as the community grew. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth caliph and Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, faced significant internal challenges, including civil strife and dissent within the Muslim community. Despite these difficulties, Ali's leadership and dedication to justice and piety were exemplary. His tenure, though marked by conflict, further solidified the foundational principles of Islamic governance and jurisprudence. The early caliphs, known as the Rashidun, rightly guided caliphs, played a pivotal role in shaping the Islamic State and ensuring the continuation of Muhammad's legacy. Their leadership and the rapid expansion of the Islamic Empire laid the groundwork for a flourishing civilization that would make significant contributions to various fields of knowledge. As Islam spread beyond the Arabian Peninsula, it encountered diverse cultures and civilizations. This interaction led to a rich exchange of ideas and knowledge, fostering advancements in science, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. The Islamic Golden Age, spanning from the 8th to the 14th centuries, was a period of remarkable intellectual and cultural achievements. One of the most notable centers of learning during this time was the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, established during the Abbasid Caliphate. Scholars from various backgrounds gathered there to study, translate, and expand upon the works of ancient Greek, Persian, Indian, and other civilizations. This intellectual hub produced groundbreaking advancements in various disciplines. Al-Khwarizmi, a Persian mathematician, developed the foundations of algebra, while Ibn Sina, Avicenna, made significant contributions to medicine with his comprehensive medical encyclopedia, The Canon of Medicine. Al-Haytham, Al-Hazan, advanced the field of optics, and Al-Biruni's works in astronomy and geography were unparalleled. The Islamic civilization's contributions were not limited to science and philosophy. The arts and architecture also flourished, with the construction of magnificent structures such as the Alhambra in Spain, the Great Mosque of Cordoba, and the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Islamic art, characterized by intricate geometric patterns, calligraphy, and arabesque designs, reflected the spiritual and cultural values of the civilization. The spread of Islam also had a profound impact on social and legal systems. The principles of Sharia, Islamic law, derived from the Quran and the Hadith, sayings and actions of Muhammad, provided a comprehensive legal and ethical framework for governance and personal conduct. The emphasis on justice, charity, and social welfare led to the establishment of institutions such as waqfs, charitable endowments, and hospitals, which played crucial roles in social development and public welfare. Islam's expansion into regions such as North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Indian subcontinent, and Southeast Asia was facilitated by trade, missionary activities, and the appeal of its inclusive and egalitarian message. Sufi orders, in particular, played a significant role in spreading Islam through their emphasis on spirituality, mysticism, and personal devotion. Sufi missionaries traveled extensively, establishing communities and fostering cultural and spiritual exchanges. The Islamic civilization's contributions to the world are vast and enduring. The principles of learning, tolerance, and cultural exchange that characterize the Islamic Golden Age left a lasting legacy that continues to influence various aspects of modern society. The preservation and transmission of knowledge by Muslim scholars played a crucial role in the European Renaissance, bridging the gap between ancient civilizations and the modern world. Muhammad's legacy is also evident in the enduring spiritual and ethical principles that continue to guide the lives of millions of Muslims around the world. The Quran and the Hadith provide a source of inspiration and guidance for personal conduct, social relations, and spiritual growth. The 5 pillars of Islam: faith, shahada, prayer, salah, fasting, psalm, charity, zakat, and pilgrimage, hajj, form the core practices that unite Muslims and reinforce their sense of identity and community. The Hajj, in particular, is a powerful symbol of the unity and universality of Islam. Each year, millions of Muslims from diverse backgrounds and cultures gather in Mecca to perform the pilgrimage, reenacting the rituals established by Muhammad and affirming their commitment to the principles of Islam. This profound spiritual experience reinforces the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood among Muslims and highlights the global nature of the Islamic faith. The legacy of Muhammad and the spread of Islam also include the emphasis on social justice, compassion, and the welfare of all individuals. Islamic teachings advocate for the protection of the vulnerable, the equitable distribution of resources, and the importance of community solidarity. These principles have inspired numerous social and humanitarian efforts throughout history, from the establishment of charitable institutions to contemporary initiatives aimed at addressing poverty, inequality, and human rights. The Islamic civilization's rich cultural heritage, intellectual achievements, and ethical principles continue to inspire and influence people around the world. The teachings of Muhammad and the legacy of the early Muslim community have left an indelible mark on history, shaping the development of societies and contributing to the collective progress of humanity. In conclusion, the legacy of Muhammad and the spread of Islam encompass a vast and multifaceted heritage that has profoundly impacted the world. From the unification of the Arabian Peninsula to the establishment of a flourishing civilization characterized by intellectual and cultural achievements, the principles and teachings of Islam have left an enduring imprint on human history. The legacy of Muhammad, reflected in the spiritual, ethical, and social dimensions of Islam, continues to inspire and guide millions of believers, fostering a sense of unity, purpose, and commitment to the values of justice, compassion, and knowledge.